Here's an interesting question on immigration from Chris. He writes, or she writes, I thought we were done with that Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Last I heard, he was getting ready to be deported within a day or two to somewhere in Africa. I think the question on a lot of people's mind is, why is this administration having so many problems getting rid of the seemingly simple cases? How did this guy's deportation get so screwed up that we have to keep listening and going over it 6 months later? Chris, same. I have the same thoughts. He's like a bad penny. Right? So it keeps popping back up. Like no matter what you do, you're still on the Kilmar Abrego Garcia story. Why does everybody know this man's name? Enough already with this guy. And I have to be honest, it's because in part due to incompetence. And I'll explain how. So first of all, that's the guy who had a withholding of removal order. Meaning he went through the immigration courts when they arrested him and accused him of being an MS-13 gang member. And he managed at that time to pitch his sob story to some bleeding heart on the immigration bench who gave him, instead of a deportation notice, gave him kind of a get out of jail free notice, which is called a withholding of removal, meaning you can deport him if you really want to, but you can't deport him to El Salvador because he's convinced me that there are terrible gangs there that mean to do him harm. And I think that was all bullshit, to be honest. I don't believe any of that. I think he just didn't want to go back to El Salvador. And even that notice is no longer good when the threat is removed. So if the gang that was after you has been disbanded 10 years later, you can be sent back to El Salvador. And by the way, that's exactly what happened. That's what happened. But anyway, so that's the first problem. Some bleeding heart on the immigration bench fell for his little act and gave him that order. Then, when we were deporting people under this first year of the Trump administration, he got rounded up appropriately. And the one place we couldn't send him to, we sent him to El Salvador because we struck that deal with Bukele to take these people and put them in this prison. And it wasn't that he wasn't deportable. He was deportable, but just not to there. And then the administration made the mistake of admitting they had made that mistake, which, it's not great to say in court, whoops, we made a mistake. Would have been better to come up with an argument. That's kind of what lawyers do. But they thought of that too late. They were already on record as admitting it was a mistake, turned into a big national controversy. And then they came up with criminal charges to slap him with while they tried to save face and bringing him back to the United States and out of that as El Salvador in prison and all that after the visit and all the publicity around it. And as soon as he got back here, they slapped him with criminal charges relating to his alleged trafficking, which it seems pretty clear he did. So that was sort of their, okay, he's coming back, but it's still not a win for the other side because now he's facing criminal charges. And this one judge who's an Obama appointee, who is also a far leftist, is Judge Zinnes, she's 100% against the administration on this. And while I'm not on her side, I can't be too harsh on this judge because we've been botching it over on the administration side. I mean, it hasn't been good. And then finally, they go into court for the most recent hearing. Now they're trying to just deport him the old-fashioned way, like get out and go to this, I don't know, it's like Uganda, someplace. You're right, it's some African country, can't remember which. And as his lawyers are challenging that, they're challenging it all. And to his lawyers' credit, they said, let us see the order of removal that preceded, like the order of deportation that preceded the withholding of removal. Because before you say, but you can't deport him to El Salvador, you need the order that says you can deport him. And it turns out they don't have it. That lame immigration judge who handled this thing in the first go-round never issued one. So it turns out he's got an order saying you can't deport him to El Salvador, but he doesn't have an order saying you can deport him. So it's beyond effed up, which means, and I've contacted many administration officials saying, aren't you just going to now get a deportation order from any immigration judge? And they all seem to be telegraphing, yes, that's their next move. But Judge Zinnes has said, you're not locking him back up. You're not going to lock him back up. So that's fine. You can do it while he's at large. But they're going to know where he is, and he is going to get dragged before an immigration judge, and he is going to get deported. He's not an American citizen. He has no right to stay here. He's never been given permission to stay here. So he is going away. Soon we will be done with the bad penny, and he will be somebody else's problem. But it's kind of a case study in government incompetence and how crappily our immigration system has been working. You know, it really is. The guy's allegedly beating his wife repeatedly. She's seeking multiple protection orders against him. He's allegedly trafficking people into the United States, all these other illegals from state to state, cross country with no luggage. Oh, I'm sure it was legit. Not to mention his MS-13 gang affiliation, which has been proven to my satisfaction and to the satisfaction of the 2 immigration courts who looked at this initially, just not to the satisfaction of the left, which wants to hang on to every last illegal. They're hoping that they'll become voters and put Kamala Harris in office. So it's very frustrating. It gets almost too frustrating to continue covering, but we will. And I thank you for listening and for your smart question. Okay, moving on. Next topic, radical Islam. And this one is from Joe, who speaks, I think, for a lot of the viewers because many of you wrote in about this. He writes, is the West/Christianity going to be able to contain, stop the spread, or possibly reverse the spread of Islam, or are we simply doomed? I actually think we are capable of stopping this spread, Joe. We are not Germany. We are not France. We are not London. We are a much, much bigger country. 330 million Americans is much, much harder to dilute. And while we did have open borders for 4 years under Joe Biden, mostly they came from the southern border. Yes, we did get our fair amount of Muslims, but most came from the southern border. And we've got a problem now with, gang affiliated members and also just loafers who are not contributing members of society. And then you got people like from Somalia who just want to mooch off of us while we pay for their lifestyle, while they take their government paychecks, or not paychecks, but checks, and ship part of them off to Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group. It's not great. But there haven't been that many Muslims who came. I mean, if all the Hispanics who came from south of the border were Muslim, I'd be more worried. And the Muslims, let's be honest, they're breeding like rabbits. That's like part of their mission, is to have kids, have tons of kids, have 6, 7, 8 kids, and win by multiplication. So Christians need to start having babies. Sorry, but we do. If I had met Doug when I was younger, we would have had 3 more. But I was kind of an old lady when we got together, and I did what I could in my limited time of childbearing years. So I had Thatcher I had Yates at 38, Yardley at 40, and Thatcher at 42. And thank God they were all healthy. But as you know, God shuts you down around that point. So we got to have more babies. Like, the left has basically stopped having children because of climate change. Okay, how's that working out? They need to have babies too. Although, let's face it, the responsibility is mostly on the right. So if you are a conservative Christian, please have children, more than you can afford. Honestly, find a way. They can go to public school if you live in the right community and get a good education without being too indoctrinated, ideally south of the Mason-Dixon. And honestly, college right now, like Elon's always saying, it's not even necessary. You can learn everything you need to know on the internet. Hillsdale College has got so many great podcasts and courses that are for free online. You can educate yourself. I know this sounds like a little flip, but I believe it's true. And more people are providing education for people in a trade where they'll pay for you to get educated in, like, as a plumber or an electrician, and you don't have to pay for that out of pocket, and you can go on to have a great life in a really, like, a well-paying job. Anyway, I just think we need to have more children, and we need to elect people like Trump. We need to keep JD in there after Trump is gone, where we stop the immigration from countries who do not share our values. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm sorry, but no more Muslims. We're done. Our values are not aligned. They're just not. I have Muslim friends. It's nothing against them. Their individual, friendships are fine. They as individuals are fine. But Islam is not consistent with the values of America, of the West. They should stay in countries that don't care about keeping church and state separated. They should stay in countries that don't care about protecting free speech. They should stay in countries that don't care about women's rights. That's where Islam can fester and grow. It's great. I mean, I'm sure if that's like your thing and you don't care about like genital mutilation, you might really enjoy living in an Islamic country. If you don't mind living in a life as a woman where you have to keep every inch of your body except for your eyeballs covered, yeah, someplace in the Middle East could be for you. It's not my thing. It's not America's thing. And it's not a thing that we should want or encourage in the West. And it's definitely not a thing we should encourage at our governmental level. I mean, one of the tenets of Islam is to convert, is to take over. They want to get rid of the infidels, the Christians. They do not want to live peacefully side by side with us. They want to convert us. They want either to get rid of us or subvert our religion and our beliefs to theirs. So it's a no on more immigrants from Muslim countries. And on the 5-time call to prayer being played over loudspeakers in places like Minneapolis, that has to stop at Dearborn and Minneapolis. We've already lost 2 major American cities, and we should be done with that. So you need to get involved at your town council. You need to pay attention when ordinances are going through. You need to not be afraid to say, we're not electing an Islamic mayor because that's not consistent with our majority beliefs. And if they call you a bigot, so be it. Remember what Christopher Hitchens said. You know, they're going to make up this term Islamophobia to shut us down. And that's by design. There's no such thing as Islamophobia. You are not only entitled to, quote, fear Islam, I would argue it's your duty as a Christian to stand up and fight against it. It is not consistent with the values of the West or America, and therefore you have no problem. You should have no problem standing up against it while being kind to your Muslim American neighbors. Okay, you can be kind to them and say, I disagree with the tenets of your, quote, religion, and do not believe that people who follow Islam should be in power here in America. So that's that. Every once in a while, something comes along that reminds us of the power of storytelling, something bold, meaningful, and grounded in faith. The Pendragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin, is a new 7-part series from the Daily Wire based on the novels by Stephen R. Lawhead. In the series, as pagan gods fall silent and empires collapse, one man's faith lights the spark of a civilization reborn. It's a story about courage, order, and moral clarity. It's the kind of story Hollywood does not make anymore. Through blood, faith, and sacrifice, Merlin becomes the bridge between myth and history and shapes the destiny of kings. The Pendragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin, premieres exclusively on Daily Wire Plus on January 22nd, 2026. Watch the new trailer now at pendragonseries.com. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.